Hello, and welcome to Collision Repair's Bodyshop Talk podcast, the show all about the latest news, biggest names, and brightest ideas in the collision industry. I'm Elizabeth Sargeant.
And I'm Gideon Scanlon. In today's podcast, are women in the collision repair industry better off working south of the border, or do Canadians have the edge when it comes to gender equality in the body shop?
We speak to two newly appointed Women's Industry Network board members to find out, Trista of BASF and Cheryl Boswell of DCR Systems. But first, we head to Western Canada, to Alberta, where collision industry educators have come up with a creative solution to a big challenge in the college curriculum.
How do you prepare a student training in 2019 for a career that could last into the 2060s? For educators, that's a real challenge, one we discuss with Ben Hart, an instructor at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, who has been involved in writing the collision curriculum for Alberta.
I'm Ben Hart. I'm an instructor here at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology in Calgary, Alberta. I've been working here for about 2 years as an instructor. I've been in the trade just under 2 decades. In Alberta, we have a very industry-led apprenticeship system. So the way it works here is our apprenticeship board actually has a branch that strains down from it, where industry has a say into what's happening with our apprenticeship system. So basically what happens is if there's an apprenticeship branch, for example, the auto body trade, that has a lot of activity in the trade, they will have a PAC, which is the Provincial Area Committee. And beneath that Provincial Area Committee, there will be an LAC, which is the Local Area Committee. I was part of the LAC for a number of years and eventually part of the PAC.
Having served on the two boards for such a long time, Ben is something of an expert on curriculum overhauls in Alberta.
So I spent about 7 years on these committees before working with SAIT. I was able to work with producing the course outlines. It's a lot of bureaucracy, so if we want to change in the curriculum, it's 7 years to get that change made in writing. With the technology advances we have today, 7 years, it's way too slow. The time frame that's taken to change the course outlines isn't going to change a whole lot. I can't see that speeding up very quickly, but we did consider that while I was on those committees. And so what we did with that is we created a new section where we can discuss new vehicle trends, new vehicles technologies, much like iCar does. And a lot of the curriculum wording was changed to be a little bit more vague. So rather than creating curriculum with very specific wording, which limits it, we can now open up that interpretation a little bit. So over that 7 years, what we originally interpreted as one thing, we can now manipulate to suit the changes of the industry without going back and changing everything.
So now that Ben is working with the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, those efforts to give more leeway to teachers are making it easier for him to tailor his own classes for modern times.
So now that I'm an instructor at the school, we have the curriculum we have to follow, but we also have a little bit of leeway here too where we can teach outside the curriculum.
So now that Ben is working with the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, those efforts to give more leeway to teachers are making it easier for him to tailor his own classes for modern times.
So as an instructor, of course, we recognize the need for pre and post scanning. So even though this isn't particularly a part of the curriculum, it's something that we can certainly address.
Having decided remote diagnostic repairing will play a big role in the industry in the years to come, Ben and his colleagues encountered another barrier to providing students with access to up-to-date training: the cost.
Now, we're fortunate at our school that we do some manufacturer-specific training. So we actually do have some of the manufacturer tools here for the AST programs, so the auto service technicians and mechanics, but that's not implemented directly into our programs. And additionally with that, as auto body technicians, a lot of the capability of these equipment is beyond the expertise of an auto body technician. So that's where I was thinking about a better solution to dealing with our collision vehicles. And so I got a hold of AirPro as well as one of their competitors to see who's going to be willing to work with the school. AirPro came to board there, came to bat I should say, and were more than willing to work with us, help us get the equipment in here, help train us on it, get it set up and implement it into our curriculum.
Ben also recognizes that while it might be possible to keep training modern, and even to anticipate techniques that will be used in a few years from now, there is no way to prepare students for a long career.
I discuss this with my students in almost every class, and I say to them, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't see the future, but one thing I can definitely say is there's change happening right now. What exactly that means, I don't know. My best guess is that what's going to happen, and it's already starting to happen, is each individual shop is going to wind up specializing in a certain area, and it sounds like that's going to be more brand specific. So rather than having a shop that works on all models, it'll be a shop that works on maybe 4 or 5 specific makes. And I think that's going to really limit what we're doing, but also allow us to specialize more in these areas so we can be more adept to all these specific repair requirements for these vehicles. Now, within that individual shop, I think that's where it's really going to depend on the size of the shop. So if you still have a smaller shop with only 3 or 4 techs, I think there'll be techs that are doing everything. But I think if you get into these larger shops where there could be, 8, 9, 10 plus body techs, I think that's where we'll see the specialization, much like you'd see in a mechanic shop today.
That was Ben Hart, a collision repair instructor at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. And next, the Women of WIN. Boswell kicked off the conversation today by sharing what the mission of the Women's Industry Network really is and how it all started.
Really, the mission behind WIN is to really help develop and support women in the industry. That's really why WIN was started. It was basically an idea that, we needed to figure out how to support women in this industry and, how do we build that network.
Trista Anger, a WIN woman from up north, also quickly joined in to tell us why the WIN network is needed on her side of the border.
We didn't have anything similar to that up in Canada, and being involved in the collision industry for the last 15 years and being a minority in that industry, I've worked on other committees and associations in Canada trying to get, to exactly what, I'll echo what was just said around our vision for WIN. There's nothing like that in Canada. So I attended the conferences, and then so my, decision and the support of my employer to join and to apply for the WIN board is how do we further advance that, and from a Canadian perspective. So I applied and was very pleased to be awarded a position on the board. So my goal, right now, first of all, is to learn more about WIN, the organization itself, but then looking at how can we further that vision and mission, and how do we expand the WIN exposure up into the Canadian market.
While Anger uses her board membership to expose Canadians to the power of WIN, she celebrated her induction in the yearly conference in Fort Lauderdale, Florida earlier this year, alongside Boswell and many other women from the industry. Cheryl Boswell got to fill us in on all the epic final night celebrations and the awesome opportunities for scholarship winners.
We do 2 amazing things on that night. One, we recognize our most influential women. And these are women in the industry who are kind of the change makers, the women who've really paved the way for a lot of us. And they've made, these huge impacts on the industry and additionally in their own communities. And then the other thing that's so exciting for us is, again, we're all about really, helping women enter the industry. So scholarship committee, and we give out the annual scholarships, and we had our biggest scholarship class to date. We had 9 scholarship winners. So we were very pleased because not only did we grant them, money towards their education, but we bring them to the annual conference. And so they were with us for the whole conference, and we were able to, hear a little bit more about their stories as well and what they want to do. And so we were able to celebrate them that night as well. I think many of them left with actual job opportunities after they left. So exciting. And really, WIN is all about mentoring and really connecting people with mentors. And these scholarship winners year over year will come back and say, that WIN made that difference.
And finally, these experienced women in the male-dominated industry give us their greatest piece of advice for girls wanting to enter the trades.
I think the simplest phrase that I would use is I think we often hear fake it till you make it. And being a woman in this industry, and I'll tell you the biggest thing that I've learned is and I have this right on my desk right now as we're talking, and it says face it till you make it. So whether it's don't be afraid to have confidence in your skill set, understand what you're bringing, and don't be intimidated. Failure is not, I know it's an old adage, but we hear about that constantly. Don't give up on that. And just to echo the previous comments quickly around the conference, that's what I so appreciate about the WIN conference is it's such a beautiful, and WIN is an organization because it marries that beautifully, looking at experience of women in our industry and recognizing that incredible potential.
That was Trista Anger of BASF and Cheryl Boswell of DCR Systems, 2 recent additions to the Women's Industry Network board.
That's all for Bodyshop Talk today.
Powered by Media Matters and Collision Repair Magazine, Bodyshop Talk is your go-to podcast for all tech and trade-related interviews, information, and more. featuring leaders from the collision repair industry and some unsung heroes. CR Bodyshop Talk will keep your hunger for insider industry news satisfied.
Join us next week when we take on the little matter of OEM shop referrals. Thanks to all our listeners and advertisers for their support of the magazine and this podcast. If you would like to offer us feedback, or if you have a topic that you would like to discuss with the community, please don't hesitate to write me at gideon@mediamatters.ca.
Bodyshop Talk is powered by Media Matters and Collision Repair Magazine, co-hosted by Gideon, Scanlon, Elizabeth Sargeant, and produced by Alan Smith.
Thank you to all our listeners and to the sponsors.